And we are live. So, hello, welcome to my interview space. Whoever wants to answer questions first, just go for it. I'm not going to ask one of you specifically.
Yeah.
So tell me, give me a little bit of background. How did you get into cheer? Why did you start? That kind of stuff.
Kenny, your story starts before mine. Why don't you go first?
All right. I actually started uni. I started cheer first year of uni. Because I'm actually originally from Sydney, and I went to University of New South Wales. I don't know. I think during open day and stuff like that, you have a look at all the societies that are around, and then we saw the cheer squad. So friends and I, friends from high school, and we ended up going to the same uni together, and then we just thought it would be a huge joke if I tried out for the cheer team. So I went and tried out, and I got on because they needed boys. And then they were like, cool, so you come to training and everything. And then I was like, yeah, I should go because I said I would. And then it kind of just went from there, and I really enjoyed it. Actually, after the first year, I didn't really want to go back anymore. And then I was going to quit. And then, I don't know. And then I felt bad again because they were like, oh, next year will be really fun. We're going to do this. And I was like, okay. And then it kind of just went from there. Yeah.
And how long ago was that?
That was actually in 2009 was my first year at cheer.
Yeah, right. So
yeah,
a good decade. And so, like, are you officially retired now?
No, I'm never going to really use that word. I think no, I'm never going to use that word because he's always going to be like, if everyone jumps on the team and I have time and I feel like my body's holding up, then it's like, yeah, why not? I just, for the moment, am not really wanting to do a team. I still love stunting. I love going into the gym and helping out where I can, and love doing flight club and all that kind of stuff. But as in terms of like a team, I just don't think I have that drive anymore to train 3 times a week. And I think priorities have just kind of shifted. That's all it is. But I still love it a lot. I just can't, I just feel like when training starts becoming a bit of a drag and you're kind of questioning, be like, oh, do I have to do this anymore? I think it's time to be like, okay, I should stop for now. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely takes up a very big part of your life.
Yeah.
So tell me, how did you get to, did you spend most of your time on Outlaws?
No, actually, because I was from Sydney, I did 2 years pretty much at uni cheer. And then one of the coaches there was telling me about this gym in Newcastle. And that was actually East Coast All Stars, ECA, with Derek. And then they were looking for boys to join their team for an international competition. And then I was like, cool, let's go do it. So I went, I met Derek, I met the rest of the people at ECA and tried out, got on the team. I didn't really have many skills back then. I probably had like a toss to hands, and maybe I learned how to do a standing tuck in like 2 weeks at like an open gymnastics gym at the Sydney Olympic Park. And then, but I think it was just more like they just needed people, and then Derek would be able to teach us the rest and everything. And then found out that the international competition was actually Worlds. So my first, so I went from level 2 to level 5, and my first competition was Worlds in 2011.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I feel like that story happens more with boys than it does
Yeah,
with girls. The boys are just like elevated straight to the top.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Maddie, tell me about yours.
So mine started, I think, in 2015. And I was a tennis player by my whole life, and I had a friend who used to come and watch me play a fair bit, who was a cheerleader. And then one day he sort of said, "Oh, what are you doing on Saturday?" And I went, "Great, let's hang out. I'm doing nothing." And he was like, "Good, because I've got a competition. You can return the favor. You can come and watch me." So he already knew that I was not doing anything. So I didn't really have an excuse. So I came along to a competition, and it just blew my mind. It wasn't at all what I was thinking. After the competition, there was a bit of the team kind of got together, and I was invited along to that. So I met a few people, and then was invited along to a training session because stunts looked cool. So it was like, come and stunt with us next week then. So I did, learned some things. And, for my first week, I was pretty adamant that, no, I'm going to stick to tennis. I'm going to keep playing tennis, but I'll partner stunt on the side because that's pretty cool. And I think it took me about 2 weeks to change my mind and be on a team. So I did my first competition at level 3. And that was states. That was about, I think it was about a month and a half, maybe month and a half after I started, maybe 2 months after I started.
And what team was it?
That was Gravity at SCC. And then I entered a partner stunt routine as well in level 3 and won states. And then the coach, Eddie, said, all right, stop coming to Gravity, start coming to Legacy. So then I was on level 6 from then onwards. And then level 7 when the rules changed and it became a level 7 team.
I watched you progress, and you're very, very aware of your body, and you've got really good, great aerial awareness. Do you think some of that comes from tennis, or do you think you're just naturally like that?
As a kid, I did a lot of sports. I mean, there was a time where I played basketball. There was a time where I played softball. There was a time where I was in athletics. There was a time where I played soccer, AFL football, gymnastics. So I had a really wide kind of range of things that I had done, and some of that being gymnastics. I probably only did a year of it, but I was pretty comfortable doing flips into a foam pit, which is a good place to start when you start cheering. I think a base level of general athleticism is a really good entry point as well, because jumps, tumble, stunting, they all require that strength, that coordination, which I came into cheer with a lot of that.
Yeah,
I was learning the skills, but I wasn't necessarily limited by my strength at that point in time.
Sure. And so how long ago was that? How long have you been cheering now?
That was 2015. So what's that? 6 years.
Mm-hmm. And you've just had a baby who's how old now?
6 months today.
Oh, cute.
Yeah.
And do you think, are you a bit the same as Kenny? Would you still do team if it sort of came up, or do you think that's it for you now? Do you think having a baby's changed that, or not really?
No, I think the equation has changed between Renata and I. The conversation, it needs to be a real negotiation about who's doing what, who's doing it when, when am I around, when am I not around, when can she do the things that she wants to do. And if that sort of stuff lines up, and if I want to be on a team again, we'll have that conversation and we'll make it work. We always have, she's always supported me 100%. So if that's something that I want to do, I'm sure we'll make it work. At this stage, I'm just really enjoying stunting as often as I can, when I can. And, lockdown has its added benefit of I got to spend the first 6 months working from home with Wyatt. So that's been pretty cool.
Yeah, awesome. And how long did it take you to learn your back tuck?
Not long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 2 weeks though?
Probably.
Really?
Yeah. So my first ever session that I came in properly to tumble, I did a back handspring, and then connected 2 back handsprings, and then was connecting 3 back handsprings. Just once I'd landed one, I could just jump into another one. That sort of came. Now, don't get me wrong. Anybody who's ever watched me tumble is not going to tell you that I am a pretty tumbler. I'm a pretty barbaric tumbler, but I can get things done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I wouldn't go out there and say that I make anything look particularly good.
And can you give me, both of you now, give me your opinion on this? I've seen so many guys get a back tuck so quickly, and it was something that I battled with for so long. And I've got a few theories around it. I think that someone once told me that men hold their center of gravity in their chest, whereas women's center of gravity is in their belly button. So for a guy to get the hips over their shoulders, it's much easier, whereas a girl has to get her center of gravity over her shoulders. I think that's part of it. But then I also think that men in general, have slightly less fear when it comes to that kind of stuff. Any opinions on that?
I truly believe in the center of gravity thing. I think makes it a lot easier. And I mean, you could argue so many other things, like just in general, like guys, especially when they learn tumbling at such an older age, a lot of it's just about strength. We just muscle through it. We just kind of throw it. We land it. Maybe it's the fear factor. I'm not sure, because I'm terrified of tumbling. But yeah, when I think a lot of it's just, for me personally, my own experience is a lot of tumbling that I ever learned was purely just strength. It wasn't, and you're trying really hard to do the technique, but your body, learning tumbling starting when you're 19 years of age, the body awareness isn't there. The shapes aren't there. Your flexibility isn't there. You're kind of just throwing it and hoping that it will kind of work out. And just repetitions of just throwing it and throwing it, throwing it again. But yeah, I would probably say the center of gravity thing is definitely the most accurate thing for me. Yeah.
Nice.
I think the fear factor, guys tend to have a little bit less of that, which might also be rooted in the strength. I mean, if you're coming into it with a bit more strength, a bit of extra confidence is probably justified, because you know that you can jump a little bit higher or do that. So I think that typically the guys that I've seen are probably less worried about things going wrong, and that may be a byproduct of being able to jump a little bit higher. Gives them a little more time in the air.
Yeah.
It's like whatever happens, like I'm going to make it over. It's just whether or not it's going to be good or not. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And so, Kenny, you worked for ASCIF for how long?
I actually worked for ASCIF for about 3 years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you were mostly doing like marshalling at competitions, yeah?
Yeah. So I was actually predominantly, I actually started off in the warehouse. And then I went to the office and I did a lot of admin stuff, like in the office. And then at competitions, they put me in warm up because I was a credentialed coach, and it was kind of just like complimentary thing to a lot of coaches in warm up to help with, I guess, just trying to spot like last minute legalities and things like that. To be honest, it was really generic things. I couldn't see everything every single time. I mean, because they do that at Worlds, so I think ASCIF thought it was a great idea to have someone there and do things like that. And then eventually I got kind of moved to pretty much awards, because we started doing the awards in a digital format. So pretty much, so then that was what I was starting to do. So yeah, but yeah, it was really fun.
Have you, did you get any insight from the warm-up rooms? Like, did you ever see a team and be like, whoa, they look a bit nervous, I don't reckon they're going to do a very great performance? Or teams that you'd be like, oh, maybe they're not going to do really well, and then they end up doing well?
Yeah, it was really hard to tell all the time, because first and foremost, you want teams to be nice and safe when they're in the warm-up floor. And obviously some teams are extremely good in their warm-up. Some teams are a little bit shaky, and a lot of it's just part of the whole competition experience, where the kids are just nervous, or the athletes are nervous. And yeah, I definitely had those thoughts sometimes. And then, a lot of the times I was wrong. Like, they go out there and absolutely smash it. But, I don't prescribe to the, the theory of like that superstition of like, if you warm up bad, you're going to compete well. I don't believe in that at all. I think if you warm up well, you can compete well. If you warm up badly, you can still compete badly. I think it's really just up to your athletes and you at the same time. So yeah, I don't know. I just, like, you have to be pretty impartial, especially working for the event company, and you just got to make sure everyone's safe. That's all it is. Yeah.
I was never one that wanted to do a bad warm up, but I never wanted to do a perfect warm up.
Yeah,
I just wanted
understand.
something small to go
Yeah.
wrong, just to be like, oh, I forgot that dance motion or something.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, phew, I'm fine.
Yeah. It's like you don't want to peak in the
Yeah,
warm-up room, you want to
exactly.
peak out there.
Yeah. And Matt, you were like a tennis coach for years, weren't you?
Yeah.
Do you think, and I know like you're coaching with Flight Club, do you think that like coaching is transferable in that way?
Yeah, I do. I certainly do. I think that there's two, coaching a particular sport requires two sets of skills. The first set of skills is how to coach, and the second set of skills is understanding the technical elements of the sport. And so once you know how to coach, if you've gone through and done a few different sports and you've got some really in-depth understanding of two different sports, in my case tennis and cheerleading, but in particular partner stunting or stunting, then many of those skills are transferable for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And so tell me, why did you guys start Flight Club?
Flight Club, it's got I think it's a pretty good reason for starting it. So a couple of years ago, Dan Bailey and I had, more or less the idea. And what we were seeing, Kenny came on board a little bit later, but what we were seeing was there were a couple of guys within, and, our silo is SCC because it's the club that we were affiliated with and the team that we were on. But we were seeing people come to SCC as new athletes and want to get into cheerleading or want to start partner stunting, but it's a really intimidating thing because the athletes that were at the club or are at the club have such a high ability stunt-wise that being a new person coming in, how do you ask them for help, or how do you join in with them in a session, or where do you start? There wasn't really anyone teaching any of those skills. It was kind of just go play in your own time, make sure it's safe, watch videos on YouTube and see how you go. And so the phase of Australian cheerleading that I sort of feel like we came through, and what we had access to, the information that we had access to, we had to learn a lot of the skills ourselves by doing it ourselves. And then, we see some new people come in and they see what we do, or they see stunting and they want to be a part of it. They want to do it, but it's such an intimidating thing to walk up to the guy in the gym who's throwing, rewinds to one arm and hitting it every time and go, hey, can you help me? Like that's got to be a difficult thing for a new athlete to do. So Dan and I sort of said, we would love nothing more than to have more of those new athletes come in and stunt and get better at stunting and feel comfortable. One of the greatest things about the stunting community is just that. It's such a fun community that supports each other and helps each other and loves seeing new stunts and all of that. So we sort of wanted to help facilitate some of that. So, host a class, come along. It's more or less it's a fairly open type class. Often there's a theme or there's, an element that a warm-up element or a drill element that we'll work on. But for most of the class, it's you work on what you want to with who you want to. And we're there to help. So from one aspect, we're helping pass on the knowledge and break down that barrier so that new people getting into cheer have access to knowledge where they don't have to feel intimidated. And then the second side of it is if we start to build that stunting community, we teach people how to spot appropriately. We help people network and meet other people. And the amount of, friendships that have come out of Flight Club classes, even, to date is pretty cool. But once you start to build that network, then Josie, when you're looking for somebody to stunt with, you've now got a whole class worth of people that you've stunted with before, or you've spotted in with, or you've worked with, that now has increased your network. So you're looking to, it doesn't even have to be a flag club class, but you're looking to organize a safe stunting session. You know that person A and person B can both spot really well. Person A works with another flyer. I'll ask person B, and we'll come in as a group and we'll stunt together. So building that community that just makes stunting more accessible, I think, is the short answer.
And how does it work? Do most people come in on their own and find a flyer or a base there, or do they sort of pre-organize that and come as a couple? Or
so people come with partnerships or pairs or groups, and we're pretty firm on that. We'll try and help where we can, but what we do need to keep reminding people, Dan is still involved, and he was in an interview with you a few weeks ago, but he's in America. Kenny and I both work full time, so we don't have the time to be trying to pair everybody up and do all of that. So we're pretty firm in saying, you come with your partner or your group, and we'll help where we can when we can. So yeah, we ask the people come in a group, and part of building that network is, if your flyer is unable to come one day, you've actually got a few other people that, there's another base and flyer who I'm friends with. I might ask if I can join their group, because actually working in a group of 3 works really well, because every stunt is still spotted and the flyer doubles in for reps. So so we actually ask that the participants organize their groups.
This makes it so much easier, especially for us, because most of the time what we realize also is that, like, when people do want to come stunt, it's usually the bases. So you'll have like 5 bases and maybe 1 flyer. So it's just not saying that like flyers don't want to stunt, but I'm just saying most of the time it's the guys who really want to stunt. So we really, like Matt said, we try really hard to get people to come in pairs. So then it's not like there's really uneven numbers or anything like that, and people aren't waiting around for like the entire class hoping that they'll be able to stunt.
Yeah, cool. And I assume that your main focus is partner stunting, yeah? Both of you. Why do you think, first of all, why do you love partner stunting so much? And why do you think it's so good to focus on rather than, group stunt?
There's something that's really satisfying about being able to hold another human above your head on one hand. I think that's the
yeah, I would agree with that. For me, and I think Matt agrees with this as well, is probably like, for me, stunting is kind of just like, there's no limit. I think like it's a never ending kind of like pursuit for skills. Like if you've hit something, if you've hit a skill, okay, now we're going to twist it. We're going to hit it to one hand, hit it to one leg, hit it to the other hand, things like that. So for me, it's just like, it's never ending. And that's what's exciting about it. There's always the next skill. There's always the next skill. There's always the next skill. It's not like all of a sudden you're like, oh, I've run out of things to do. And like, even the most elite stunters, the American collegiate stunters, they're always pursuing the next thing. They challenge each other and try and make up different things like that too. So that's what keeps it really exciting. I would probably say I love all kinds of stunting. I love watching group stunt. I think like all-girl teams, the level 6 all-girl teams, all 5 all-girl teams, even something like level 4 all-girl teams, where it's all completely group stunt. I mean, just seeing like really, really good group stunting is just really, really satisfying and just really badass as well. So yeah, I love group stunting as well. I love really good dual stunting. I think we appreciate all kinds of stunting, but I think for Matt and I, like our expertise is in co-ed stunting, because that's what we've pretty much been doing. Yeah.
And do you think partner stunting improves your technique? Because if you're in a group stunt and you're slightly off, there is possibly someone who could like save you or help you. Do you think you really need to get your technique spot on with partner stunting?
Yeah, I think so. with less people underneath a stunt, you've got less total strength holding somebody up, which means if your arm's not straight, it's not going to stay in the air. Or if you haven't caught with a good grip, there's not a back spot that's, you know, fixing the angle of the flyer while you adjust that hand. You got to do it yourself. So it decreases the margin for error.
Yeah.
Which means that the technique's got to be right, or you've got to be really, really strong.
Yeah.
And we see both.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We've all seen that guy with like bent arms. You're like, how is that physically possible? So tell me, do you have any sort of tips or tricks in how to build trust with your flyer?
Yeah. So the base's job is, no matter what happens in a session, the flyer goes home safely. The flyer walks home. The flyer drives herself home. She makes it home to her own bed at the end of the night. And if you spend enough time stunting with somebody and they haven't been hurt, then that trust comes. But you know, the one time somebody falls and hurts themselves, it can, you know, it can write them off for years. And that trust in some cases can never be repaired. So that's why we think it's so important to teach people how to spot correctly as well as how to stunt correctly. You know, because the number one priority is, I mean, both people's safety, but the flyer's putting themselves at more risk realistically. So the number one priority is that the flyer remains safe.
Yeah, that's for me, like that's definitely the number one thing too. And I think another big part of it is also just like remembering that stunting is, especially, you know, in a co-ed stunt group, it's 50-50. I mean, sometimes you see a lot of couples where, and most of the time it is the bases, they're just imposing their will upon the flyer a little bit too much. They're the ones that are always critiquing. They're the ones that are always saying what's wrong. And they're the ones that are saying, like, you got to do this, you got to do this. And I think that dynamic has to be 50-50. I think just as much as the base, you know, just as much as the base has like some sort of feedback about the stunt, the flyer also needs to say something too. I think the communication is really, really important. And the more you guys communicate, the more you guys kind of, I guess, like in a way, be more comfortable with one another. And you got to remember, it's a partnership at the end of the day. It's not just two people coming together and throw a couple of stunts. Like, if you genuinely don't like each other, it's not going to work out. You know, you're not going to want to spend that much time with each other, because it's about safety. It's about trust. And if you really, really don't like each other, like don't communicate with one another, it's probably not going to go very far. So I think communication is very key. Yeah, just on a personal basis, not even just about stunting. Like, it's just about on a personal basis, you got to be able to communicate with one another. You know, like, and like, you know, Matt, like, how many times have you, you know, like the amount of times you've competed, you know, with different flyers as well. I mean, you probably have always had like a very good relationship with your flyers, you know, based on like friendship, where it's just like, and that has carried you to, you know, success in competitions, because there is that trust that's there, because you guys genuinely want to stunt with one another, not just because, hey, you come here, let's stunt, let's do some stuff. And then, you know, the flyer just like stands there the whole time or doesn't say anything the whole time. So yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. And I love the communication thing. I think that's such an important part of it. However, I'm sure, I know definitely I have been on, when you have on a team and your coach puts you with someone that you don't necessarily get along with that well, and that you don't necessarily feel like you stunt with that well. How have you kind of navigated those situations?
For me personally, it's just like, I like to think I get along with everyone. I like to think that I really don't have a lot of issues with a lot of people. But I think at the end of the day, if it's someone that you either don't know really well, or someone that you know, you don't really get along with, you got to remember, at the end of the day, this is a team sport. And you're doing this for the betterment of the team. And, you know, you have to put aside that, and you have to be like, okay, well, I have to make sure I get along with this person in order to hit the stunt, you know. You have to put that ego away. You have to leave it at the door. You have to put those things aside, and you have to make it work. And if it's really like you guys don't get along, I mean, try and get along for that. You're not together for a very long period of time. It's just that couple of hours a week, and that's all it is. But I think you've just got to think about the bigger picture sometimes, and not let that get in between.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm pretty fortunate in that I've only been on one team, and on that team I've actually really, well, apart from gravity, but on that team I've actually really liked almost everybody on the team for most of the time I've been on it. So I haven't actually been in a situation where I've
Not got along.
not got along with my flyer.
But that says a lot about you and how like you just like generally get along with everyone, like it, yeah. That's all it is.
Yeah, I suppose for me it was like, I guess some of it was insecurity. And so when I got put with someone who was a little bit blamey, then I would get my defenses up, and then that would make us like, and I'm a big personality as well, so I would make my opinion known. But yeah, I do think once I got a little bit more secure in myself, that was definitely an easier thing to deal with, because then I could like put that aside and be like, okay, well maybe I did do that wrong, and that sort of seemed to balance out. But I definitely had a few clashes.
I reckon I've had some sprints because of your personality too.
That was my thumb. No, that was my thumbs. That was my bloody thumbs. Jonathan, who's watching, says, Matt, you're looking swole. I just say, if there's anyone who wants to ask any questions, put them in the chat and I'll ask them. Silly question. Do you miss Dan, or is it better without him?
Matt, you go first.
I miss Dan.
Yeah, of course.
He's so much fun to stunt with. He's got such a great attitude towards stunting.
Yeah.
So having him around is always good. Having said that, I wouldn't take away what he's doing from him ever. I think that the opportunity to go overseas, live in another country is such a privilege in the first place, but to live in another country and cheer and study full time is a pretty special couple of years. So not only Dan, but anybody else who has the opportunity to do that, I think that they should absolutely make the most of it and jump straight in.
Sure.
At the end of the day, if you hate it, come home.
Yeah.
To come back to. So
yeah.
And so tell me, do either of you thrive under pressure?
No, you go.
No, Kenny, your turn.
I guess I've definitely made mistakes at competitions. I've made mistakes at Worlds. Like I've like tripped over during a routine. But I think at the end of the day,
like flat, like just a little bit of a trip.
Like I was holding someone. I was holding a flyer, and I think I had to take. It was during a pyramid. I had to take like a step somewhere. I had to move the stunt, and I literally just tripped or fell. It wasn't anyone's fault. I literally think I just fell, but nothing happened to the flyer. Just kind of like a very slow lowering of her. But my legs just got taken out underneath me. But like it's just like, you always like to think that you're pretty good under pressure. Otherwise, like, why would you keep coming back into this sport? If you weren't, you wouldn't want to do this sport ever again, because it is a performance sport. It is all about pressure. Then why do we put ourselves through that every single time? But personally, I like to, and I actually thought about this, the other week. I think the main thing for me is just like, your body always defaults back to its muscle memory. So if you train well, and if you train properly, and if you apply yourself at training, even when you get to a competition, if you're a warm-up floor or you're on the floor, as soon as you get nervous, and you get that anxiety, you can trust that your body will default back to what it's been trained to do. And if you've done the hard work, and if you've done what you need to do, it'll just click back in. So I think the confidence in knowing that gives me a lot of confidence going into competitions, but also it's just experience as well. Like I don't think it ever gets exceptionally easy. You eventually get to a point. It took me a very long time to be on the floor and actually have fun. When people always say to you, just have fun out there, it's really difficult. But it took me so long to get to a point where it's like, I'm actually really having fun. I'm actually really aware of everything that's going on around me. I can really communicate with my teammates and things like that. But it took me a long time. Before, it was just like, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? Now, and then it got to a point where I was like, I actually can have fun. I can relax. I know what I'm doing. I'm very confident in what I need to be doing. But yeah, I think it's just a combination of knowing that you've put in the hard work during training and experience. So yeah.
Yeah.
I like to think of myself as good under pressure, but again, I've dropped at comp too. Other than that, I agree with everything. And he said I could say it again for you, but not a waste of time.
Have you ever blanked at competition?
Yeah.
It's the worst feeling.
Yeah.
I remember screaming, "What's next?"
Yeah.
No one responded to me, and I was like, I don't know where to go.
Yeah.
It's the worst feeling.
Yeah. It's scary when you blank on the warm-up floor because you're like, but then it's good because then you've caught yourself doing it, and then you're like, shit, I'm not going to do that out there. But yeah, I blanked so many times on the warm-up floor. I have no idea why, and I'm like, oh god, come on, let's just get back into it. But yeah, definitely one or two times on the actual performance floor, and you blank, and then you're like, then you quickly dash away, like, oh my god, it's right there. I gotta go there.
It feels like forever though. Those 2 seconds that you're there feels like forever.
100%. Because you're so used to being like, here and then here, and when you're training, it's so mindless. And then all of a sudden, it's like a very high tense situation, and then you blank. You're like, oh my god, where am I going? Yeah.
Absolutely, and it scared the life out of me. And one of the causes I think is your training environment is always the same. You've always got the same poster on the wall.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've always got the same mark on the floor where you land your tumble. You've always got, it's the same beam you're looking at or something like you're under. And when you're on the competition floor and those references are gone, it can take it away. And the only thing that, as I said, it scared the life out of me, and I was terrified that I would do it again. So the amount of times that I started visualizing my routine in a different room, it's somewhere else, before competition, that listen to the music, shut your eyes, visualize your routine, just so that you learn to rely on the music, or you learn to rely on the stunt to reference what's next, instead of where you're standing or what you can see or what's above you. Yeah.
I totally agree with that. And I found visualization such a powerful tool, especially because I've got a really vivid imagination. So if I just always made sure, and that was one of the things that sort of got me over my anxiety when I went back to training, was just, I would just go find a corner and just visualize, and I'd go at competitions, I'd find a corner and go and visualize. And it helped me a hell of a lot. I think it's really, really, really good tool. Tell me a little bit outside of cheerleading, but do you still get a bit of a weird reaction from the general public when you say that you're a cheerleader?
Yeah, most people don't understand what that means. The one I get is, what team do you cheer for? It's like, it's SEC or it's Legacy. Like you probably haven't heard of them. Well, what sport do they play?
They play cheerleading.
Okay. So you think I'm standing on the sideline cheering for a sport happening, like sideline cheer that you see happens in college sport a lot. But no, cheerleading is the sport.
Yeah.
And then usually you show them a video of a routine or something, and that settles it down pretty quickly, because it's pretty hard to watch a good routine and not go, okay, that was pretty impressive.
But I was meaning more so because you're guys. Like, to people that are like, what, you're a guy and you do cheerleading?
Yeah, I think that's the thing too. Actually, this is something I thought about probably a couple months ago, is that we are obviously, we're in the cheerleading community within Australia. We know a lot of cheerleaders and all that kind of stuff, and we've known so many people for so many years. But I always thought it was really funny that, like, personally, have you ever gone into public, right, and then seen other people do cheerleading in public?
No.
Right, as a cheerleader, like, I've never seen that. And sometimes, like,
Yeah.
like, me, Matt, and obviously you, Josephine, as well, like, you've done like a stunt session in the park or something like that, and amongst the, whoever's there and all that kind of stuff. But personally, I've actually never gone out in public and I've seen anyone ever do cheerleading,
Yeah.
like in a park or something like that.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? I don't know.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. It's like, even though we know it's around, it still feels like a very underground sport.
Yeah,
you don't
it's
see
really
it
weird. But we know there's a lot of people who do it. We know that it's growing. We know that there are so many people who do it, but I've never seen it in public. As a cheerleader myself, I've never seen it. Yeah.
I mean, I guess the same could be said for gymnastics, though. And the only reason we're aware of gymnastics is because it's on at the Olympics and
I guess so.
But,
yeah.
I mean, like, calisthenics. Who's ever seen calisthenics in?
Yeah.
Because it's always in a gym, and it's
Yeah.
Anyway, so tell me, for anyone wanting to go to Flight Club, what are the details? Advertise yourself.
So Flight Club, we run 2 or 3 classes a week at a couple of different venues. We have a class on Wednesday night at SCC in Northcote from 7 till 8. We have a class on Saturdays at SCC as well from 2:30 till 3:30 in the afternoon. And we have a class on Friday night at Pure All Stars, which Pure is going through a transition where they're moving their gym at the moment. So that class actually needs to be put on hold until they open the new facility and move in there. So that's why I sort of said 2 or 3. In terms of coming along, you and a partner or group of 3, as long as you've got, bases and flyers, or even if you're a group stunt group and you want to come get a little bit of extra stunting, get some advice from, Kenny and I have got years of partner stunt and group stunt under our belt in a safe environment during a class, then send us a message, come along to one of the classes. The first class is always free, so no obligation. You can come along, test it out, and then meet us, see how you like a class, and we can talk afterwards about what would work for you.
Nice.
Yeah.
And why do you think it's important for people to sort of have fun outside of training, team training?
For me personally, I believe that I think it's with a lot of things. I think if you're not having fun doing a particular sport or anything, why do it? And the way that when Matt was outlining how we run our classes, there's like we do a quick drill together. Might take probably like 10-15 minutes at the max, and then afterwards it's just free stunt. And that's a whole part of it. Like we want people to pretty much have fun and stunting, and pretty much leave them to their own devices, because everyone's at a different level in terms of their stunting. And if we plan the entire class in a very rigid kind of way, it wouldn't be fun for maybe 80% of the class. We'd be forcing people to do skills they're either not ready for, or it's too easy for them, or whatever it is. So at the end of the day, I think if you're not having fun, you're not progressing. And I think that's important. Yeah. I think it's important that you genuinely enjoy what you're doing, and then you're going to progress. Yeah.
Yeah. To build on that, it's there's a lot of people who are in cheerleading and love their stunting and all of that. But team training, coaches who coach teams have so many things that they need to tick off to get a routine ready. They need to have the tumble down pat. They need to have the formations down pat. The dance has to be just right. They need time to practice their baskets. So there's just not enough time in a training week for a cheer team to let people learn a new stunt. Because it's what have we got and how can we get it to look good in a routine. So what we're trying to do is provide an opportunity for people to come in with a group and just learn to stunt, learn that new skill. Somebody really wanted to learn a handstand, so they sort of come in, they ask a question, that's my goal, I really want to be able to do a handstand. Okay, well, it's not in your routine, so you're probably not going to spend a lot of your team's time teaching the flyers how to do a handstand if it's not in the routine. But in our class, it's the perfect opportunity. There's a skill that you wanted there. There's some coaches there who have done it and understand it and know how to do it. There's some other flyers there that probably, participants in the class that have done it and understand it and know how to do it. So you come in with that goal and it's time for you to work on the stuff that you want to do.
It's like experimenting in a very safe environment, pretty much.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of my regrets is that I never learned to kick full basket, and I think one of the main things was because I wasn't progressing quickly. So, and then there's only ever going to be 4-5 flyers max that are going to do baskets, and so like I felt like I never got to practice at them. So something like that I would have loved to practice that out of training.
Oh, come to Fight Club. We'll teach you how to do that. That's easy. We can teach you how to do that.
So any advice for up and coming stunters?
Matt, do you want to go first?
Come to Flight Club.
Come to Flight Club.
It's time in stunts. There's a number of times people kind of ask me questions on what I did and all that sort of stuff, and when I got into it and had the love for it, and I mean I still do, but when I had the time for it, I was in the gym 3 times a week for team training, and I was 2 of those nights I was in the gym before team training stunting, and on 2 or 3 other days in a week I was in the gym stunting. Calling a flyer, seeing who wants to come in, getting a group together, and we were lucky. I think it's probably not quite the same setup at the moment, but we were lucky in that the couple of years that I was trying to do that, there was space in the gym. And so, whoever was coaching the class or whatever was going on at the club, there was always a corner that we could work in. So we utilized it. We came in, there wouldn't have been 2 days in a row we didn't stunt. Whoever I was working with, whatever group was coming in, as a bare minimum, it was every other day we were stunting, and did that for years. So time under stunts, that's really important.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably the most important thing. I think at the end of the day, it's just you got to stunt. And I was the same as Matt. I would be obsessed. I would just want to stunt every single day. And to a certain extent, Matt and I feel the same way. If we didn't have the priorities and the things that we needed to do, I think we could be like, every day, let's go for an hour. Let's go throw some stunts. And every single time now, even at this point in time, it's been so long. I've been doing it for so long. I do 1 or 2 stunts and I'm like, my body and my mind is ready to go for another 2 hours. We like it that much. And I think but that's something that you have to develop over time. I think also another couple of things is just especially people who are starting stunting. I think the way I would probably describe it is be ambitious, but also stay in your own lane. You can always reach for the next stunt, always reach for something higher, but also understand and listen to your coaches and understand, sometimes Matt and I do need to stop people from being like, you're not ready for that yet. Do this first. And that's very common. We see a lot in people when they start stunting, but it's not a bad thing. We love it because we can see that these people want to be there and they want to keep reaching and they're very ambitious, but it's our job as coaches to be like, put them on that proper progression. I certainly made a lot of mistakes while I was coming up stunting, and I learned from those mistakes. And as a coach, I try really hard to be like, I don't want you to do what I did, even though my understanding is that, especially people who are starting to stunt now will progress a lot faster than Matt and I ever did. There's more resources around. There's more coaches who know what they're doing. For example, us in a fight club. But I think it's just more like, you know, chip away at it a little bit at a time. There's no secret formula. You just got to stunt. You've just got to keep at it. You've just got to keep progressing. But stay in your lane. Don't worry about if this person's throwing a rewind. Just keep doing your toss QPs and then you'll get there. So yeah, I really think, just keep at it.
Yeah, for sure. And someone else, I can't remember who it was, but we were talking about the importance of basics. And I know that like as adults, we tend to get very frustrated and just want to progress. And we were talking about just, you know, even if you just spend 10 minutes warming up, doing basics, that you just always need to check in with that, because otherwise down the track, you know, if you're trying to do a round off flip and you never work on your round off, suddenly it just goes haywire and you don't know why.
Yeah. Yeah. But even now, like, you know, sometimes like if I were to go and stunt now, and as much as Matt and I, well, Matt especially loves throwing like big stunts, you know, some of the big stunts, and we love doing those kind of things. It's super challenging. But, you know, personally, and I think Matt as well, because Matt's a very technical stunter as well. We love the basics and stringing little, little mini routines together and stringing like little sequences together. A lot of it with the basics. We love that kind of stuff because it's so satisfying to just like, for example, work on left-handed things, because that's a big weakness that a lot of people have. It's a big weakness that I have, but I have no obligation to do a team. I can work on that as much as I want. There's a lot of joy I feel in working a lot of the basics, especially when you make it fun. You put them together, you make little routines out of them, you make a little string them all together. It's really, really satisfying.
Yeah, I like that. That's good.
Yeah, I've almost got the same sequence of things I go through every time I start stunting.
Yeah,
it's the first 10
like
of stunting is set. It's almost always the same sequence. Varies a little bit with who I'm working with and what we're capable of, but every session has a first 10 minutes of basics. We often come back and revisit some things too, and stuff like that. But yeah, I think the other thing that's a contributing factor is variety in who you stunt with. That's one that probably didn't get to mention earlier, but there has been, and it's sort of died down in Australia a little bit at the moment, but often there can be a bit of a stigma about, Josie, you stunt with Kenny, so I can't ask you. Mm-hmm. Well, like in reality, Josie, you're your own person. And, if you're free on Wednesday night and you want to come into the gym, like,
why not?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So, and that variety in stunting is only going to help you become a better flyer, maybe a better base. And if you become a better flyer, that has a benefit for when you work with Kenny as well. So I think that's a really, I suppose it's just an interesting point I wanted to call out.
Yeah, no, for sure. I totally agree with that. And it's funny because I think about, back in 2000, sort of like the early 2010 to 2014, there was this big thing about stealing athletes. And it was like, do you remember, like, it seemed to be a real time capsule when that happened. It was like, don't coach athletes, it's terrible. And, oh my God, this stole this athlete. And it seems to have got much more relaxed. I don't know if that's just because there's so many teams around that you can choose from. But my philosophy around it was always that if your club is great and people want to be at your club and you're offering the level that they want to do, you won't lose them. And you shouldn't have to be like, you can't go somewhere, because it's like people do this for fun. It's enjoyment. It's like you can't keep someone in a place they don't want to be.
Exactly.
So the
right.
thing you control is the environment.
Yeah. Exactly right. Like, and Matt was saying, everyone's their own person. And, if people choose to leave, there's not much you can really say to them to dissuade them, and if they choose to leave because their friends are there, or they feel as though there's better opportunities there, or they just generally enjoy stunting there, or whatever it is. I mean, at the end of the day, there's not much you can really do about it. And you've got to be okay with that. I think, people need to learn to be okay with that. It's just the same as like, you yourself will progress to somewhere else once you feel like you've hit a barrier somewhere. If you hit a ceiling somewhere, you want to keep going, but unfortunately where you're at isn't providing the next step for you, so you're going to go somewhere else. I think that's a normal part of being I think that's a normal part of life,
Ambition.
Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah. And I don't think we should really we should encourage it, in a way. I think if it's the intentions are good and you're genuinely wanting to get better, I think that's something that should be encouraged and not frowned upon. So yeah.
Mate, I thought you were going to say something, but no. He's like, I've got so much to say, I can't open the gym.
It's a really funny topic that we could spend so long on. We've had people come to Flight Club and then receive a message from their club saying, we will provide all of the coaching that you can ever need. And then the club now has changed its rules to say you're not allowed to do any cheerleading anywhere but our venue. So that's been something that we've dealt with. And, at the end of the day, clubs will do what they do. Our philosophy remains the same. We're trying to provide a safe opportunity for people to learn to stunt. So
if anything, we're providing an extra service for we're not a gym. We don't have teams. We're providing an extra service to your clubs to help them get better for your teams. So they can return to your teams and be better stunters. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. But that's the way we see it. We're not. We're just generally out there trying to make sure that people progress safely. And just get to try the skills that they've always wanted to do, so and help them get there. That's all it is. Because like when Matt and Dan first started Flight Club, I'm pretty sure that was part of their intention too. Like they probably wish that something like Flight Club was around, and certainly I do as well. Something like Flight Club was around when we started stunting. It would have been really good. We probably would progress a lot faster. Have just people there being like, this is how you do this and this is how you do this, rather than I'm going to try and watch this video 50 times and try and work out what these hand grips are and what's going on in this stunt.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. All right, tell me, what is your favorite stunt?
Back handspring.
There you go. You like
back handspring full up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To one arm or two?
To one arm.
Nice. Why?
There's just something about tumbling into a stunt that I just love. It changes a stunt from being driven by the base's power to being driven by perfect timing. Because if a flyer is going to tumble at you, number one, she needs to have consistent, nice tumbling, powerful tumbling. Number two, the level of trust required is just through the roof. I don't know if you've ever tried to tumble while, in a routine and there's somebody in your way, but as soon as your line is not clear, it's hard to do. So to tumble at somebody is hard from that perspective. But then from a basis perspective, as soon as a stunt is tumbling in, it is easier to throw. You get the timing right and the power's already there. So, I like the back handspring full up. I mean, back handspring up was always the skill I would have answered with, and just in the last sort of couple of years, I've probably been catching the full up reliably enough to be able to say that
I can hit that thick easy.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool skill. It's a pretty badass skill. Yeah. For me, I don't know. There's so many skills that come to mind. At one point in time, I really liked doing the front handspring ups, and I could front handspring up to QP, with flyers I've been working with for a while. But I think lately what I really like the, just the more, transitional skills like QP pop over or prep hands, hands full around to platform. Mm-hmm. I love skills like that because it's just I feel like for me, those are the technical skills that are gateway skills to just a never ending possibility of like, then you can hit it to one arm and then you can twist it, and whatever it is, like, it just, for me, like, it's a real show of like technique. You do need to have a certain degree of hand-eye coordination. You do need to have, you can like muscle those skills, but if you want to hit it consistently, you've got to have a degree of technique. And I think for me, that's really satisfying, figuring out, because those skills took me so long to figure out. Maybe I just was so slow with those skills, but not that like I'm like really awesome at those skills now, but like I can get it to a point where it's like I'm pretty confident with them. But for me, I just think for me personally, those skills just took a long time. And every time I do one now, I'm like, oh, it's so nice. Like I feel so good about that. It's
satisfying.
Very satisfying. Yeah,
I get that. I think that's one of the best things about cheerleading is that that sense of achievement when you've been when you've been fighting for a skill for so long, and then you finally nail it, you're like, oh god, this is so good.
Exactly right. And that's something I think, like, when we were talking about before about like advice for like stunters and things like that, I think everyone's stunting journey is personal to them. And I think, like, just elaborating on that, like, staying in your own lane thing, I think at the end of the day, like, you're going to go through where you're going to be good at certain skills, and someone else is going to be good at certain skills. So it's just like your own journey is very personal to you. So, it's always good to draw elements from other people and things like that. But for me, it's always been creating my way of stunting, and it's something that, I could possibly teach to someone, but I'm very different to Matt. Matt's very different to me. So, it's just like, but we love to learn from each other. And there are certain things where Matt does, and I'll be like, how'd you do that? What did you do? Like, so we're always eager to learn. Even at this point in time, we've been stunting for so long. It's always like, and I think that's what keeps that passion alive.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. I feel like I was always a bit of a slower learner. Like I felt like I was always kind of catching up with the team rather than leading the team. And that's, I would have loved a little bit more time to get to the point where I was possibly one of the leaders.
Yeah, but that's all right. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's so true. All right, well, we're up to the hour. Thank you so much, guys. This was really awesome. I think we've had lots of girls recently, so it was kind of cool to have a male perspective and like a male base and that kind of stuff. It's interesting, and especially with the whole Fight Club thing.
That's cool. Yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. Well,
thanks for having us on, Josie.
No worries.
Yeah.
Enjoy. Enjoy. I don't know what. Enjoy the night. Enjoy freedom tomorrow.
Yeah.
No, not tomorrow. Friday. Yay.
Yeah, Friday.
All right. See ya.
See you later.